Hi everybody.
Hey, so we're at the Wolf Den parking lot, and we're gonna do Wolf Den next. It looks like Wolf Den is one of the, I think it's rated as a 4 or 5 or something trail here. So that would be like maybe a green or maybe a light blue Roush. So anyway, you're gonna get to see it. So we'll see you. Hey guys, I said it was Wolf Den. It's actually going to be Dutch John. So the first part of this is Wolf Den, like the first maybe 1 minute, and then once we get to where Dutch John connects to Wolf Den, then we turn from Wolf Den on to Dutch John. So outside of the cattle chute and the washouts that are on the cattle chute, you'll notice that it's pretty hard just by like physically looking at the trails. Like what the difference is between a lot of the different trails at Uwharrie, like whether or not it's like Wolf Den or Dutch John or Rocky Mountain Highway, or even sections like say like Dickey Bell, like the longer sections, not Little Daniel. You'll see that like a lot of footage looks really similar, like mud humps, like and leaves and beautiful scenery. So I don't know if we're still on Wolf Den or on Dutch John with me saying that. I'm just sort of like watching. There are like these little obstacles you can play on, but for the most part, if you have a stock vehicle, you can do about 90% of Uwharrie. The Uwharrie Park is in North Carolina. For people that live in North Carolina, it's kind of their go-to because like it's so close and local, and it's so stock friendly. It's a good place to take like new members of a Jeep club, let's say. But with that said, it's also so small and so like basic that once you've done the trails a couple times, like you're kind of like done with Uwharrie and you're looking for more. And unfortunately, from North Carolina, much else is like pretty far away. I think the next nearest park from here is Winrock Park, and Winrock is an excellent park. Like that park is humongous, and they have like tons of different difficulties. It is just ridiculous how much stuff they have at Winrock. I mean, literally, Winrock I think is like 50 times as big as Uwharrie. It's just you know great. So like right there was a spot that I saw where I saw like a little kind of vertical step, and I decided, well, why don't I go over the step? You kind of have to look for the obstacles to play on in the park. They're not like forced upon you, so to speak. There's very few obstacles in this park that are forced upon you, and like even Little Daniel and Dickey Bell, there's a complete bypass where you can get like a Grand Cherokee or any kind of like lower clearance vehicle to fit over. So I'm like pretty sure that by now we're on Dutch John and we're no longer on Wolf Den. I think the Wolf Den section was very short. It might have been so short that I even cut it out. So one thing that is hard to tell is that we are going up a mountain. The easiest way to tell that we're going up a mountain is by looking at the trees once again. If you look at the angle of the trees compared to like the angle of the ground, if it looks relatively flat, then you know that we're on a flat surface. Like right there, like it's flat. But when you start going up the mountain, when you kind of see that like on the left side, you can see it's like kind of like shaped like a triangle where it's kind of going up. You can tell that all of a sudden you have the perspective that we're actually we're going uphill. So this isn't just like all like flat footage. Like I said earlier in the video, I think that most of these trails are rated somewhere as a 4 or a 5. Now I keep like switching back and forth, and I'm just going to talk about this for a second. So we decided to stop here to get like some pictures and stuff because like it looked kind of like kind of a cool place to line up the Jeeps. Part of going out here is like friendship and camaraderie and building memories. It isn't just all about like driving. And so they just thought this would be like kind of a neat location where we could line up all the Jeeps and try to get out all the Jeeps in the same view frame of a shot to take a picture. And I parked up on the hill like that on purpose just so you could see me. So anyway, I keep talking about like these, like sometimes I talk about numbers, sometimes I talk about colors. Jeep Jamboree uses a number system to rank trails, and Jeep Jamboree goes across the United States, and they go to a lot of different parks. So a lot of people kind of use that as a go-to to try to standardize like the numbering of like what it means, because they have like verbose descriptions. And so like on the Jeep Jamboree or Jeep scale or whatever, the trails are ranked, from 1 to 10, where 10 is like the most difficult trail, and 1 is the easiest trail. And then the Jeep Corporation, when they give out the badges, the badges have like I think the same numbering scheme, and it might even be the same people that do the rating. I'm not really 100% sure about that, but typically, there's a little bit of perspective in that it depends on who's throwing the numbers out to how it's rated, like what the rating actually means. So like for some people, they think that like a 9 or a 10 should mean that it's buggy only, and like you should be completely unable to go over the train with like a Jeep without substantially damaging it, like major body damage and major component failure. However, with that said, I think Jeep Jamboree ranks a Rubicon trail, which is a very difficult trail, as a 10. And it seems a little bit silly that you would rank like say the Rubicon Trail as a 10, and they take Jeeps on it all the time that are not buggies, which would mean that really like does that mean that there's a 12 out there or 15 or whatever buggy only is? I don't know. So anyway, it's a loose kind of rating system, but 1 to 10. Is kind of like, and even on the national parks, like for Uwharrie, they actually use those same numbers and they have them on the maps. But once again, I don't know who actually determines that this is a 4 versus a 3 versus a 2 versus an 8 or whatever. And I guess maybe it's a little different per park. Really, a lot of it has to do with obstacle size. Then you also hear me talk about colors, and the color system is something that was heavily used at the Paragon Park. That's not open anymore. It's also used at Anthracite Outdoor Adventure Area, or AOAA, in Pennsylvania. It's also used at Roush Creek in Pennsylvania, which is a place that I go very frequently. I'm not really sure who else uses it, but they kind of copy the skiing colors, where like you have green, which is like easy, and then blue, which is like intermediate, and then black, which is like hard, and then sometimes like they have a black one, black two, or sometimes they mix the colors, like blue black is something like between a blue and a black, and then red, which is the hardest. And even within between those two parks, like the colors like don't always like fit together perfectly. So when I am like throwing out colors, I'm referring to colors that are either at Roush or AOAA. And like I was saying, there's even debate and differences between those two parks. So typically, your typical black at AOAA is typically lined up with your typical red at Roush. But even with that said, there are some reds at Roush that are actually pretty mean, like Crucible. But most of the reds at AOA are designed to be buggy only, and most of the reds at Roush, you can find videos on YouTube of Jeeps going over them without like life-ending damage to their vehicle. They do like the Crucible is pretty damn aggressive, and people break some pretty big things on that. But anyway, so most of these trails that are at Uwharrie, like I was saying, most of them are greens, and then they maybe have some like light blue or blue obstacles on them, meaning like most of them are ranked somewhere between 4 and 6. And like even the most difficult trail, like Daniel, I wouldn't really want to say the rating, even on the hardest obstacle, which is the face of it, is much harder than like say like an 8, and that would be being very generous, like very generous to kind of pad the number up. Um, Majority of that trail, of the Daniel trail, is probably more like a 6, maybe a 7 in my book. So anyway, back to the Uwharrie stuff. So this is the Dutch John Trail, and hopefully, you're getting a flavor of what the trails are like at Uwharrie. Because obviously, if you're looking this up, you want to see what they look like, and figure out, like, what do you want to come down to this park, and what does it look like, and OHV and stuff. So this is on Black Friday. I probably mentioned that at some point or another. So this is like late November. You can see the colors are on the trees and everything like that. It was raining, I think, like maybe the night before, but nothing looks like too saturated or too muddy. There's a little bit of mud, but it's not really slippery. There's always all these mud humps, and I've always kind of imagined that this place would be like really incredibly difficult if you were here like while it was raining, especially if they had like days and days of torrential downpours and stuff. But I've never seen that at this park. But maybe it's just because of the time frame in which I go, because I only come to this park for Thanksgiving. Like literally every year, I come to this park for Thanksgiving, so it's always the same, nearly the same exact days that I'm in this park. We would never come down to this park for any other part of the season. So maybe in spring or during summer, this park would be a little bit different. So my wife happens to have a job in the area, and she actually works roughly within like an hour or so of this park. Actually in Charlotte, where we were at in that KOA, she works near there. So there is always a possibility of coming back down here during a different time when she's scheduled to go to that Charlotte location. Maybe we can drive down or something and come to the park different during a different part of the season or something. But like I was saying, the park is just so much smaller than the other parks. Yeah, like I would have been so much happier if her job was like next to like Winrock or AOAA or one of these like big giant monster parks like Moab or Redbird or something like that. Um, so so anyway, so we are still on the Dutch John Trail, and like I said, I sped up the video quite a bit, and for this being like a 10-minute plus video, that's sped up 4 times the speed. That means that you're seeing about 40 minutes or an hour's worth of footage in 10 minutes. And this is just like maybe half of the Dutch John Trail, because there's still the cattle chute and the washouts and some other sections of the Dutch John Trail. So that would tell you, I mean, to do the entire Dutch John Trail, you're looking at maybe like 2 hours. The trails at this park are amazingly large, and we're not going like all that slow, and we don't have that many problems. They're just long. They're like really, really long and intense trails. Imagine like trying to take like a trail that goes all the way around all of Roush Creek or all the way around AOAA or maybe even all the way around the edge of Windrock. I mean, these trails are just very, very, very incredibly long. So the delay here is for an obstacle. They're spotting a couple of stock jeeps through the obstacles. Um, like the one thing on obstacles, never be afraid to ask for assistance on getting over an obstacle. Just never worry about that. It's better to have to ask for help than it is to damage your vehicle, obviously. But the other thing is, I mean, with who you're asking for advice, I don't usually like asking strangers for advice. A lot of times I'll just get out and look myself, or get out and have Kimberly drive. So once and this section of the trail apparently has recently been widened. Apparently before you had to go on the right side of those rocks, and now you can go on the left side. And apparently it was the Jeep Jamboree for Uwharrie that came out here and widened this part of the trail. So anyway, please like and subscribe, and the next video will be the cattle chute and the washouts and everything. So that's next.